Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I am here with my 2011 Mercedes ML300 and I'm going to show you how to simply and safely replace the rear brake pads on this vehicle. So the first thing that we are going to do is undo the cap of the brake fluid reservoir, just so that it's nice and loose, which is located on the rear left of the engine bay there. The reason that we open that cap is because later on we are going to be compressing the calipers to fit the new brake pads in, and that means the fluid will come back into the reservoir. So the next thing I've done is chock the front wheel so the vehicle won't move around whilst we're working on the rear brake pads. I've then jacked the rear end of the car up, taken the wheel off, but importantly I have put in an axle stand. You can see I've got an axle stand under the rail so that the car doesn't fall on us while we're working on the vehicle. So the next thing we are going to do is remove the warning brake sensor using an E10 socket. Once we've got the sensor removed, we simply unclip the electrical connection, being careful not to damage it. We then need to unclip this bracket. Simply use a screwdriver, flex it, and it will come off. Now we're going to remove the caliper, and what you find is there's two black caps that are hiding the locking pins, or I should say protecting the locking pins. So we need to remove those first. One on the top, one on the bottom. There we go. And then we use a Torque T45 to take the locking pins out. So then we've got those two locking pins out. Whilst they're out, we'll give them a bit of a clean up and we'll put new ceramic grease so that the caliper can move around freely. It's simply then a matter of just removing the caliper. So we'll just get a screwdriver to help us get that off. Now whilst that inside brake pad is still in there, I'm going to use a caliper compression tool to push the cylinder back in, and that will make room for the new brake pad thickness. If you don't have one of these tools, you don't actually need to buy one. You could just use a couple of screwdrivers and leave both brake pads in there and manually compress the piston. Or alternatively, if you've got a G-clamp, you can use a G-clamp to push that piston in as well. And we wind that all the way in. Now that that's in, I'll take the brake pad out. There we go. And I will remove the sensor from the brake pad. So with the locking pins out, as I said, I'm just going to give them a quick clean with some brake cleaner, parts cleaner. I mean, if these are really bad, you could go to town on them with a wire wheel, but to be honest, mine aren't overly bad, so just a bit of brake cleaner. And then what I'll do is I'll re-grease them with some ceramic grease so that caliper can slide backwards and forwards nicely. So we've got our new Bendix brake pads to put on this vehicle. What I'm going to do is pop that sensor into the new pads, the wear sensor, and then we're going to apply some ceramic grease to the pins and to the back of the brake pads so that we don't get any brake squeal from this vehicle. So first of all, I'll put it on the locking pins so that those pins slide around nicely. And then I'll put it on the back of the metal surface of the brake pads. So we don't need to put it on the inner one that's got the metal clip, we just need to put it on the back of the outer one. And that'll stop any sort of brake squeal as that metal on metal surface moves around. Now we do need to be careful not to get that ceramic grease on the inside of the pad where it's actually got the friction material onto the disc. So now for the reassembly, we're going to start with the inner brake pad. First of all, we put the sensor lead through the gap of the caliper, and then we insert the rear brake pad into the caliper piston. The next thing we do is put the other brake pad in, the caliper, just like that, and then we insert the caliper back into position. With the caliper in position, the next thing we do is to insert the locking pins. We then need to reconnect the brake sensor and to reinsert it into the caliper. And remember, we use the E10 socket. Remember, we've got the two black plastic caps to put over the main caliper pins. So we reinsert those. And then we should find that this caliper can move backwards and forwards pretty freely now that we've got those pins nicely lubricated. We then need to reinstall the retaining clip which holds that brake pad in there. Perfect. Now, because we pushed that caliper piston all the way in, and you can see there's a bit of movement there, we'll need to pump the brake pedal about 6 or 7 times just to make that rear caliper firm. And you can see now that I've pumped that rear brake pedal, that caliper's come up really firm. So that's it, folks. You then put the wheel back on, remove your jack stand and your jack, and then don't forget to individually torque each nut. With the right wheel done, it's now time to do the left wheel. You'll find it's the same procedure, however, on the left-hand side, there is not a wear sensor. When you move to the other side, you might find that you need to extract a little bit of brake fluid out of this reservoir, so it's worthwhile just checking it as you compress the caliper. Finally, when you've finished both sides, take the car to a nice quiet street and do a couple of test stops, just to make sure that the brakes are working fine. If you've liked this video, do feel free to like, share and subscribe.